Konnichiwa. Koriwa nan desu ka? Natural Health Dialogue desu.
I didn't know you knew any Japanese.
Very little. I went to middle school in Okinawa.
Oh, okay,
and
good
took
enough.
a couple of years of it. I don't remember much, but this is not a Japanese class. This is Natural Health Dialogue. It just so happens we're going to be talking about, this is our holiday episode, but holidays in Japan, our holidays in August are few and far between. So, Randy, what are we going to talk about then?
Yeah, we actually, Jolene is the one who does these. She does the research for them. I just come in and do the podcast and kind of give you an overview of what's there because they're generally very lengthy. We were just talking about how last month's was 9 pages long. This month we're down to 6 pages, but it's way more than we could do in a podcast. But I can give you an idea of what's there so that then you can go read the blog if it sounds like something that's really interesting to you. She covers every month the holidays, and in America there's really only one major holiday, and it's a lesser known one, and that's basically Victory over Japan Day. Well, like you, doing some middle school time in Japan, Jolene spent much of her young life, her dad was in the military, and they spent much of their young life in Japan. So she has a great affinity for the Japanese people and the Japanese lifestyle. She collects Miss Kitties that come from Japan, all that kind of stuff. So at any rate, she wanted to honor the Japanese, not by talking about Victory Day, which is celebrated in Victory over Japan Day, which is celebrated in August only in Rhode Island. The rest of the states celebrate it in September, but the Japanese don't celebrate that. But they do celebrate around the same time frame what they call their Mountain Day, and it's celebrated with great amounts of food and frivolity. It's a very big holiday for them, Mountain Day, as they look at the mountains and stuff. And so she starts out with Mountain Day in Japan and then gives honor to the fact that we do VJ Day here in the United States as well.
Yeah.
And then jumps into some of the Japanese things. And she talks about one of their main foods is seaweed and seaweed types of things. Wasabi, and so anyway, she's got a number of things here that talk about the benefits that you get from that, the thyroid benefit from the stuff that's in the seaweed itself, thyroid supplements that are there. So then she gives you some dishes and things that you could use as well. So the first one is there. Then she jumps to the other thing that we celebrate in August is back to school. And that's throughout the whole Northern Hemisphere, since most everywhere that's in the Northern Hemisphere starts back to school in August. When I was a kid, we started after Labor Day in September, but I'm old, and she's young. So nowadays it's in August, and so she begins to talk about specific things that we need to be aware of, dealing with emotional stress, bedtime problems, ailments from kids that are exposed to extra germs and things that they don't have through the rest of the year, and the collective germ pool of a bunch of people coming back together into a school environment. We talked about immune boosters and some of the immunity things in our blog last week. And she gives a little bit more on that, along with the idea. She says that in one of her statements that the environment, to be truly mentally healthy, they've done research. Learning research shows that children who spend more time around plants learn better. So teachers who put plants in their classrooms or plants in your home, in those places where your kids are going to be studying, turn out to be a very positive influence.
Interesting.
And she actually lists 3 or 4 of the common house plants that you could have and their health benefits. I'm not going to talk about every one of them, but I happen to be the first plant that I was ever personally given was by a 3rd grade school teacher named Ms. Robinson. Ms. Robinson I owe much to in my life. She was a major influence in my life. Oh. But one of the things that she did was invite me to her house for lunch one day, and my mother allowed me to go, and we had lunch together. Ms. Robinson then was way post 60 and still teaching in a little 2-room schoolhouse. She taught 3rd and 4th grade, and I was in the 3rd grade. She tried to have every student at some time into her home, and so she took me over and introduced me to things that I had never even dealt with before, and one of them was a spider plant that she had sitting over on her table by the window, which I liked, and so she broke me off one of the little tendrils of the spider plant, and we got a pot of soil and we planted the spider plant. I now have a half a dozen spider plants at my house all the time. They always remind me of 3rd grade and Ms. Robinson and all of those mental health things that I got from that.
What a great memory.
She also mentions here that that the spider plant is especially good at scrubbing the air of carbon monoxide, benzene, and formaldehyde. So that plant actually absorbs those toxins out of the air. So if you're in a place where you've got those kind of a toxic air, or you're enclosed in a house all day long trying to study, all the homeschooling we're doing now and so much learning that's going on in school, get yourself a spider plant and keep the air clean. I thought that was rather interesting.
Great idea.
In and of itself. Then she talks about last year in the June podcast that I alluded to last week. I had a section that I didn't address this year that was on head lice because we're not congregating as much together, but in fact congregations of kids at this time of the year generally leads to head lice, and head lice runs its course 2 or 3 times a year. She actually gives you a recipe for how to take care of head lice. Our special at the store for this week is going to be anything that's dealing with head lice, some essential oils that we use for head lice, some head lice commercial products that we carry. So that's something that deals with school that we'll be talking about as well.
We're talking like 20% off on that, aren't we?
20% off if you buy one, 25% if you buy more than one.
There you go.
So if you're buying the 3 major essential oils that we use for that, that's 3 products. You can get 25% off on those. That's tea tree oil, eucalyptus oil, and lavender oil are all good for helping to get rid of head lice as well. Formulas for that are in her blog, or you can go back to June of last year, June of 2019, and I've got some formula work in there on how to build formulas for head lice as well.
And you can find Jolene's blog on the healthpatch.com.
You can. Healthpatch.com under the resources tab. Drop down under resources, go to the iPad. What do they go to? Go to the podcast.
Right, there you go.
Go to the podcast, and they're all listed there. Then she's got some other stuff dealing with ADD and ADHD, other things that you may need to mention. I had mentioned last week when I was talking about school that special kids have special needs. Every kid is different. And if you have a kid that has a special learning disability or a special thing that's a detriment to learning, like ADD and ADHD, where they just can't focus and concentrate, then we have some supplements for that as well. You can check in and check on those.
Good deal.
Then I'm going to close then with her last section. Jolene always closes these out with recipes, and I was particularly interested to notice not only does she list the lice treatment that's in there, but she also has a little section on pink eye. It seems that pink eye is another one of those things that runs among kids when they go back to school, and she's got 3 different forms of a pink eye treatment here that you can make using stuff that you've got at home. So if your kid's having trouble with pink eye, take a look at these particular recipes. And then my favorite here, I've mentioned that my immune system booster that I like the best is either echinacea or elderberry. And she's got a recipe here for making your own elderberry syrup at home. We carry bulk elderberries at the shop, or you can get them in a number of places. You may even grow them in your backyard. I've got friends that have elderberry plants in their backyard. If you can get hold of the elderberries, about 2/3 of a cup of elderberries will make you a recipe full of elderberry syrup, according to the recipe that she's got here. So good information for school, for meals, for all the things that are around that the kids are dealing with these days in her blog on August. That's this week in 2020.
Excellent. Thank you, Randy, for that outstanding overview of the month of August. And thank you all for listening. And if you enjoyed this content, we would humbly request that you like it on whatever podcast thing that you listen to podcasts on. And also, if you wouldn't mind giving us a 5-star rating, if you see fit to do that, that would help us too. And subscribe to the podcast. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Amen. Thank you very much, Joseph.